CDL Practice Test, Florida, General Knowledge, Part 1. Question number 1. To safely adjust your speed to current driving conditions, what should you look for ahead? A. Road signs and traffic. B. Police and way stations. C. Traffic and road conditions. The correct answer is here, C. Traffic and road conditions. Explanation. Driving too fast is a major cause of fatal crashes. You must adjust your speed to current driving conditions such as visibility, traction, traffic, curves, upgrades, and downgrades. Question number 2. Which of the following is not a true statement regarding covered cargo? A. You should check that you don't exceed gross and axle weight limits. B. In many states, spill protection for covered cargo is a requirement. C. You should cover cargo to protect it from the weather. D. You should regularly inspect the contents of sealed loads. The correct answer is here, D. You should regularly inspect the contents of sealed loads. Explanation. You should cover cargo to avoid harming people from spills and to protect the actual cargo from the weather. You should also check that you don't exceed gross and axle weight limits. You should not actually inspect the insides of sealed loads. Question number 3. At highway speeds, what distance should a driver look ahead? A. Drivers should look ahead as far as their vision permits. B. Drivers should look ahead about 2 blocks, 10 car lengths. C. Drivers should pay attention only to the traffic that is immediately surrounding them on each side. D. Drivers should look ahead 12 seconds to 15 seconds or a quarter of a mile. The correct answer is here, D. Drivers should look ahead 12 seconds to 15 seconds or a quarter of a mile. Explanation. Drivers should look 12 seconds to 15 seconds into the distance so that they have time to make a lane, change or slow down if the need arises. Note, if your state DMV manual suggests differently, please go by their standards. But this is the standard for most states, such as this one. From Virginia, Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, 2007 Virginia Commercial Driver's Manual, page 119, 123, 124, 38. Question number 4. Which of these statements about speed management is true? A. Empty trucks always stop in shorter distances than fully loaded ones. B. When you double your speed, it will take twice the distance to stop. C. You should choose a speed that lets you stop within the distance that you can see ahead. The correct answer is here, C. You should choose a speed that lets you stop within the distance that you can see ahead. Explanation. In bad weather or in the dark, your visibility may be limited. Open bracket. In thick fog, your visibility may be severely limited. You have no way of knowing what lies beyond the area that you can see. Don't drive faster than the distance ahead that you can see. Otherwise, if there is a hazard just a bit farther on, you may not be able to stop in time to avoid it. Question number 5. Which of these is a good thing to do when driving at night? A. Look directly at oncoming headlights only briefly. B. Keep your instrument lights bright. C. Drive slowly enough to stop within the range of your headlights. The correct answers here. C. Drive slowly enough to stop within the range of your headlights. Explanation. In the dark, you have no way of knowing what lies beyond the reach of your headlights. At night, you should slow to a speed that allows you to stop safely within the range of your headlights. Otherwise, if there is a hazard just beyond the range of your headlights, you may not be able to take action in time to avoid it. Question number 6. The minimum tire tread depth for front tires is A. 1/2 inch, B. 3/8 inch, C. 4/32 inch, D. 1/32 inch. The correct answers here. C. 4/32 inch. Explanation. The minimum is 4/32 inch depth for tire treads on front tires, while all other tires require at least 2/32 inch tread depth. Question number 7. As your blood alcohol concentration, BAC, rises, what happens? A. Judgment and self-control are affected. B. You see more clearly how alcohol is affecting you. C. You can sober up in less time. The correct answers here. A. Judgment and self-control are affected. Explanation. Alcohol affects the body in many different ways, but it first affects your judgment and self-control. As a result, you may not realize how drunk you are becoming, and you may start to make dangerous decisions. Question number 8. How much are you required to slow down for law enforcement, emergency workers, or tow truck drivers, if you can't move over? A. 15 miles per hour below speed limit. B. 20 miles per hour below speed limit. C. None if you cannot move over. D. 10 miles per hour below speed limit. The correct answers here. B. 20 miles per hour below speed limit. Explanation. Florida's move over law requires you to slow 20 miles per hour below the speed limit on 2-lane roadways, move to another lane, or slow to a speed of 20 miles per hour below the speed limit on multiple lane roadways, and slow to 5 miles per hour if the speed limit is 20 miles per hour or less. Not following this new law could result in both fines and points on your driver's license. Question number 9. Which of the following is true about a vehicle with a high center of gravity? A. The vehicle is less dangerous on curves. B. The vehicle is less likely to tip over. C. The cargo should be rearranged so that the heaviest parts of the cargo are under the lightest parts. The correct answers here. C. The cargo should be rearranged so that the heaviest parts of the cargo are under the lightest parts. Explanation. Cargo that is piled up high raises a vehicle's center of gravity, making the vehicle top heavy and therefore more prone to rollovers. This is especially true if the heaviest parts of the cargo are near the top. You can lower the center of gravity by placing the heaviest parts of the cargo underneath the lightest parts. Question number 10. When you're driving in cold weather, your tires must A. Provide enough traction to steer and push the vehicle through snow. B. Have at least 4/32 inch tread depth. C. Have at least 6/32 inch tread depth. The correct answers here. A. Provide enough traction to steer and push the vehicle through snow. Explanation. Snow-covered road surfaces provide much less traction than dry surfaces. Your tires must provide enough traction to maneuver your vehicle on snow safely. Under federal regulations, your front tires must have a tread depth of at least 4/32 inch, and all other tires must have a tread depth of at least 2/32 inch for best traction. However, make sure that the treads are even deeper before you try to drive on snow. 49 CFR 570.62. Question number 11. During a pre-trip inspection, you discover an exhaust leak or power steering leak. You should A. Note the problem and continue your route. B. Go home because you shouldn't drive the vehicle this way. C. Report the problem and make arrangements to use another vehicle. The correct answer is here. C. Report the problem and make arrangements to use another vehicle. Explanation. Report any problems that could jeopardize your safety or that of others or led to a breakdown. Don't drive the vehicle until those defects are corrected. Obviously, the steering system is critical and must be in good working order. An exhaust system leak could let poisonous fumes into your cab or sleeper berth. Question number 12. Which of these statements is not true about bad weather driving conditions? A. Driving conditions become more dangerous as the temperature rises to the point where ice begins to melt. B. When the temperature drops, bridges will freeze before roadways. C. As rain continues, the road becomes more slippery than it was when the rain began. The correct answer is here. C. As rain continues, the road becomes more slippery than it was when the rain began. Explanation. Roads are often at their slipperiest during the first 10 to 15 minutes of rain. This is because the rainwater loosens and mixes with dirt, oil, and other fluids that have built up on the pavement, creating a slick surface. This slippery condition will persist until more rain washes those substances away. Question number 13. The amount of liquid to load into a tank depends on A. The amount the liquid will expand in transit. B. The weight of the liquid. C. Legal weight limits. D. All answers are correct. The correct answer is here. D. All answers are correct. Explanation. How much liquid you can load into a tank depends on the following. Open bracket. 1. Heat makes liquid expand, so you must allow enough room at the top of the tank for outage. Open bracket. 2. A dense liquid may weigh so much that loading too much liquid into the tank may cause your vehicle to exceed state weight limits. Question number 14. The braking effect of the engine is greatest when the engine is the governed RPM and the transmission is in the gears. A. Below, higher. B. Above, lower. C. Lower. The correct answer is here. C. Lower. Explanation. The engine braking effect is strongest when the transmission is in a low gear and in the engine is operating near the governed RPMs. Note, engine braking is not the same thing as using a retarder or jake brake. Engine braking simply relies on low gears and the partial vacuum in the engine at idle to prevent your vehicle from going too fast. Question number 15. Signs of distracted drivers include A. Vehicles constantly traveling above the speed limit. B. Vehicles exiting the roadway. C. Drivers listening to overly loud music. D. Drivers having conversations with passengers. The correct answer here. D. Drivers having conversations with passengers. Explanation. Watch for vehicles that may drift over the lane divider lines or within their own lane. Vehicles traveling at inconsistent speeds. Drivers who are preoccupied with maps, food, cigarettes, cell phones, or other objects. Drivers who appear to be involved in conversations with their passengers. Question number 16. When shifting up, what's next in this sequence? Release accelerator, push in clutch and shift to neutral, then A. Push in accelerator, B. Shift, C. Push clutch in again, D. Release clutch. The correct answer is here, D. Release clutch. Explanation. The sequence of double clutch shifting isn't easy, since the next step after releasing the clutch is letting the gears and engine slow down to the required RPM for your next gear. Get thoroughly familiar with it. Question number 17. A CDL driver must let his employer know within 30 days of receiving a traffic violation except in the case of a seatbelt violation, B. Speeding 2 miles over the limit violation, C. Marker light not working violation, D. Parking ticket. The correct answer is here, D. Parking ticket. Explanation. A parking ticket is not a moving violation that is considered unsafe practice within 30 days of a conviction for any traffic violation, except parking violations. A driver must notify his/her employer, regardless of the nature of the violation or the type of vehicle which was driven at the time. Question number 18. What is hydroplaning? A. When you hit a pothole. B. Driving in the snow. C. When the tires skim over the road surface. The correct answer is here, C. When the tires skim over the road surface. Explanation. On a wet road at lower speeds, modern tires will usually channel water away to maintain contact with the road. However, in deep water at higher speeds, the channeling action of the tires becomes less effective and the tires start to ride on a layer of water like water skis. This is called hydroplaning. It may result in a loss of braking and steering control. Question number 19. If you are being tailgated, you should A. Flash your brake lights. B. Signal the tailgater when it is safe to pass you. C. Increase your following distance. The correct answer is here, C. Increase your following distance. Explanation. Tailgating is a major cause of rear-end collisions. If you're being tailgated, increase your following distance behind the vehicle ahead of you. That way, if you have to stop or slow down, you can do so gradually, reducing the risk of being rear-ended by the tailgater. It will also make it easier for the tailgater to pass you. Question number 20. Which of the following may put a vehicle out of service? A. Spring hangers that do not allow movement of the axle from the proper position. B. Leaves in a multi-leaf spring that do not shift. C. Spring leaves with more than one stroke 4 missing or broken. The correct answer here, C. Spring leaves with more than one stroke 4 missing or broken. Explanation. Although all of these issues need to be addressed, none of these findings would warrant taking the vehicle out of service, though any amount of missing or damaged spring leaves could be dangerous. If 1 stroke 4 or more are missing or broken, the vehicle should be taken out of service. Leaves in a multi-leaf spring should not shift, and spring hangers should not allow movement of the axle from the proper position. Question number 21. Which of these statements is true about drugs? A. A driver can use any prescription drug while driving. B. Certain prescription drugs are allowed to reduce fatigue. C. The use of alcohol or drugs can lead to a collision and/or an arrest. The correct answer here, C. The use of alcohol or drugs can lead to a collision and/or an arrest. Explanation. Some prescription drugs can impair your driving abilities. Some drugs can make you drowsy or impair your coordination. Stimulants can impair your concentration and affect your vision. And once the stimulant wears off, you may crash, feel even more drowsy and tired than you did before. Take a prescription drug only if your doctor assures you that the drug won't impair your driving abilities. Question number 22. Which of these will help keep an engine cool in hot weather? A. Driving faster to force more air into the radiator. B. Running the air conditioner. C. Making sure the engine has the right amount of oil. The correct answer here, C. Making sure the engine has the right amount of oil. Explanation. To ensure that your vehicle's engine won't overheat in hot weather, make sure that there is adequate coolant and engine oil, and check that the coolant hoses are in good condition and not leaking. Both coolant and oil carry off heat generated by the engine. Question number 23. The most common cause of serious vehicle skids is A. Poorly adjusted brakes. B. Bad tires. C. Poorly designed roads. D. Driving too fast for road conditions. The correct answer here, D. Driving too fast for road conditions. Explanation. A skid happens whenever the tires lose their grip on the road. Most serious skids result from driving too fast for road conditions. Drivers who adjust their driving to conditions don't over-accelerate and don't have to overbrake or oversteer from too much speed. Question number 24. What can you do at an accident site to help avoid another accident? A. Leave your vehicle, do nothing, and get a higher ground. B. Have a drink to calm your nerves. C. Put out warning devices so people don't run into the accident site. D. Stay in your vehicle and do nothing until help arrives. The correct answer here, C. Put out warning devices so people don't run into the accident site. Explanation. As a truck driver, it is your job to make sure that people can see your vehicle at an accident scene. Unless you are injured, put your warning devices out as quickly as possible to avoid further accidents, such as a pile-up. Question number 25. Your truck is in a traffic emergency and may collide with another vehicle if you do not take action. Which of these is a good rule to remember at such a time? A. To miss an obstacle, you can almost always turn more quickly than you can stop. B. Leaving the road is more risky than hitting another vehicle. C. Stopping is always the safest action in a traffic emergency. The correct answers here. A. To miss an obstacle, you can almost always turn more quickly than you can stop. Explanation. CMVs can have long stopping distances. To avoid a collision or crash, it usually takes less time for you to steer around a hazard than to brake to a stop before reaching it.